Hello, and welcome to TEENtastic Tuesdays with the Los Angeles Public Library. This week, our guests are teens from the Koreatown Storytelling Program. Each teen in this storytelling project partnered with an elder of the Garment District to capture their oral history in a tribute zine. These tribute zines will be available for checkout with your library card. Free! Visit lapl.org/zines to find out more. We have over 1,000 zines cataloged in our zine collection here at the Los Angeles Public Library. This Koreatown storytelling program is part of the California Center for the Book's Book to Action 2021, whose initiatives tackle important issues in the community and encourage reading, community discussion, and action focusing on themes of equity, sustainability, and health. The Koreatown Storytelling Program is supported by the Eisner Foundation, California Community Foundation, California Humanities, NBC4, and Telemundo 52. Koreatown Storytelling Program participants Kaylee Beck and Kimberly Espinosa will share a presentation about the importance of oral histories and of capturing the narratives of their Koreatown community. As co-moderators, they will introduce each Koreatown Storytelling Program student who created a tribute zine page for the community elder whom they interviewed. Here's Kaylee and Kimberly.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Espinosa, and I joined KSP this spring. I am a rising senior at New Open World Academy. This past semester, after the passing of my dad, storytelling became a way of healing. Oral history allowed me to connect with the memories I once shared with family, and even those I did not, but that were still remembered by older family relatives. Participating in the Koreatown Storytelling Program this semester was truly life-changing in so many ways. I was able to connect with other high school students who shared a connection with the neighborhood of Koreatown and passion for reporting the stories of the people living and or working here. For this semester, we investigated elders who work in the garment district and apparel and manufacturing industry.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Beck, and I just graduated from New Covenant Academy. I've been a KSP participant since it began in March 2020, and I'll be majoring in comparative lit at UCLA this fall. Beyond just the practical benefits of expanding my interviewing and writing skills, participating in KSP for the past 2 cohorts and learning about everything Koreatown has to offer has helped me to reconnect with my own Korean identity. Second-generation immigrants aren't usually granted the privilege of connecting with their heritage in the same ways that KSP has provided its participating students, and I feel beyond blessed for the opportunity. In this presentation, we'll dive deeper into the Koreatown Storytelling Program and explore exactly what it is, what we've done, and some highlights of what we've learned from our elder partners. The Koreatown Storytelling Program is an intergenerational, multilingual, and multiethnic oral history and digital media program that teaches oral history and storytelling to high school students and elders to investigate the racial, economic, and health inequities in our community. KSP stemmed from a community photo project called K-Town is Your Town that interviewed people who live and work in Los Angeles' Koreatown. It is also part of KYCC's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which is developing an anti-racist curriculum across KYCC agency programs.
So what exactly is oral history? Oral history, in essence, is the act of capturing recollections about the past that are filtered through the lens of an ever-changing personal and social context. Oral history interviews are defined by a dynamic, collaborative relationship between interviewer and narrator. While interviewers pose questions based on careful preparation, narrators shape the interview based on what they deem relevant, meaningful, or appropriate to share. This is especially important amongst the Koreatown community due to the large population of first-generation immigrants, most of whom are not given the opportunity to share their life experiences. Oral history allows the process of recording history to be democratized. This semester, I was able to interview 2 former garment industry workers who have transitioned out of their jobs due to different reasons. Petra, who is a member of the Garment Workers Center, spoke about the injustices that occur in the workplace, such as ageism and wage theft. In one of our interviews, she said, "A todos les hacía lo mismo. Cada que alguien hacía mal el trabajo, de acuerdo a ellos, le gritaba. Y a veces me gritaba. Me decía que cuántos años llevo trabajando con ella y por qué no aprendí." Translation, they did the same to everyone. Every time someone did what seemed a bad job to them, they yelled at them. And sometimes she would yell at me. She would tell me how many years I have been working with her and why I didn't learn. Y luego, cuando llegaban los de inspección, ahí en nuestro trabajo, lo que hacían eran que a veces yo estaba desayunando abajo y agarraban mis cosas y las llevaban hasta allá. Y me decían, a la casa, porque hoy no va a haber trabajo hasta mañana. Y yo no sabía ni por qué, nada más porque no querían que ellos me entrevistaran. Porque como me pagan poquito, no querían que ellos hablaran conmigo. And then, when the inspection officers arrived there at our work, what they did was that sometimes I was having breakfast downstairs, and they would grab my things and take them over there. And they would tell me, go home, because today we will not work until tomorrow. And I didn't even know why, just because they didn't want to interview me. Because since they paid me little, they didn't want them to talk to me.
The dynamic and fluid nature of oral history allows unique stories that are often overlooked to take center stage. Through oral history, interviewees are able to take control of their narratives, especially in regards to their experiences during times of unrest or conflict. During last year's storytelling program, I had the privilege of interviewing fellow students as well as community elders about their experiences living through a time in which the COVID-19 pandemic and accompanying restrictions were in full swing. I was able to learn directly from my peers and my elder partners about how they were dealing with the situation, rather than reading about what some journalists in another part of the country assumed people felt about the experience. It helped to bring a uniquely personal perspective on a crisis that was literally impacting the entire world.
And this semester, we focused on the garment industry. During the pandemic, many garment workers produced masks and PPE, but were denied safety protections themselves. A few of the Koreatown storytelling program students were able to visit the Los Angeles Fashion District and Santee Alley in downtown Los Angeles. We saw the characteristic hustle and bustle of Santee Alley, where smaller businesses and street vendors sell their wares. But we also noticed that many storefronts had closed down. Jamie told us that the garment district has changed drastically over the years with the rise of fast fashion and outsourcing, and now with the pandemic.
In addition, our program responded to other instances of unrest and conflict, particularly in regards to the rise in anti-Asian hate and discrimination, and how this has affected members of the Koreatown community working within the garment industry.
Next up, we have Katherine Kim, our program director, who will kick us off with the tribute theme pages. Katherine, you can unmute now.
Thank you, Kimberly. Welcome to the culmination of the Winter-Spring 2021 cohort of the Koreatown Storytelling Program. This semester, we looked into the apparel and manufacturing industry, as Kimberly and Kaylee have announced. Many residents of Koreatown work as chabas or jobbers, a name for those who work in the garment district, an area that's now rebranded as the fashion district. We interviewed sewers, pattern makers, retailers, managers, and factory owners across our program. On the right of the presentation is my zine page. So Ziba led an amazing zine workshop for our program this semester. And we created a zine culminating in all of the work that we have done over the semester. And each participant made a tribute page for their elder. And so my page is actually the cover of the zine. And I wanted to kind of go through some of the components in it. The mannequin on the left is from our walking tour of the garment district when Jamie, a woman who you're going to meet later, who's one of the elders in the program, led us on a tour of Santee Alley and the fashion district. Las Fotos Project, who's our community partner, they joined us and gave us technical tips on photo essays. Photography is a big component of our program. The youth take self-portraits, but we also did a community photo essay, and Las Fotos really helped us with some compositional ideas, rule of three, different ways of taking photos and different tricks of using our iPhones. The archival picture of the little boy represents some of the Korean elders who came to the US. Many Korean Americans and Korean South Americans work in the garment district. The word bubble coming out of his mouth is actually a little cutout from the Declaration of Independence, as we studied what it means to be an American and how we are writing and documenting our own histories. It's part of the social justice component of our program. I cut out a lot of words that explored some of the themes that we were looking at when we were investigating the garment district. So you can see the word fashion. At the top of the page is Los Angeles, because we're exploring our community. Sustainability was a big element of what we had conversations about. You can see on the bottom, amidst all the little colorful threads, there's a white t-shirt. We did a lesson on where your t-shirt is made. We had everyone look at the label on their t-shirt and find out where it was made and how it was made, which represented the sort of global nature and changing nature of the manufacturing industry. As Kaylee and Kimberly discussed, the garment industry in LA is really in a changing situation where it moved to fast fashion, and now it's moving to something called ultra fast fashion, which is something also that one of our students was able to explore. I'm so happy to introduce the first student, Abby Park. Next slide, please. She is not able to be with us today, but she made a video of her elder tribute page. Fun fact about Abby. Abby is actually not a K-Town student, as most of the other students are. She's from the Orange County School of the Arts. She wrote to me and asked me if she could participate in the program because her grandfather worked in the garment district. And her father's family is also Korean Paraguayan. And so they were also familiar with the garment industry in our communities. Abby's tribute is to Jamie Cook, who is in the photo on the right with her daughter and her dog. Jamie is a second generation Korean American apparel business owner. Jamie catalyzed this semester's theme. She emailed me last year saying she wanted to record the story of her family's garment industry business. And so from that conversation, we launched this program, and she was a main contributor to our program. So here's Abby's video.
At the bottom, we have a garden because during your interview, you mentioned that you started a garden during quarantine. So I'm just hoping that your garden becomes as picturesque and beautiful as this one and produces a lot of yummy fruits and vegetables. Hi Jamie, thank you so much for being my elder interviewee. As a small token of appreciation, I've created a zine page and I'm just going to explain some of the aspects of it. At the bottom, we have a garden because during your interview, you mentioned that you started a garden during quarantine. So I'm just hoping that your garden becomes as picturesque and beautiful as this one and produces a lot of yummy fruits and vegetables. Next, we have rolls of fabric because this represents your job importing fabric and exporting fabric. And then here we have a picture of an Eiffel Tower because you said this one quote during the interview that really stuck out to me. Certain things are set in stone, like the Eiffel Tower, but we don't really have that for American culture. I thought that was really interesting because I've always heard of America as the melting pot, but I've never heard it from this perspective and comparing, like, I've never heard that there's no real definition of American culture, so I thought it was really interesting how you were able to put that into words and describe it that way. Next, I have pictures of clothing that I have cut out of a picture of a forest because you said that you support sustainability and less waste. And I thought it was really interesting how you're able to support sustainability working in the garment industry, especially how you talked about the difficulties of doing so and why a lot of big companies cannot do so, and also why some companies claim to do so but don't really, and how there's no real standard when saying that you're a sustainable brand. Next, I have pictures of gears, and the reason why I put this is because of the advice you gave me and like the wisdom, and this kind of reminded me of the gears turning in your head. Thank you so much, Jamie, and I hope you enjoy your zine.
Next up, we have Abigail, who is going to be studying political science at Duke this fall, and she's gonna introduce her zine.
So for KSP, I interviewed Luis Hernandez for the garment industry, and I learned many things about the garment industry. Para KSP, entrevisté a Luis Hernandez y aprendí muchas cosas sobre la industria. Luis immigrated to the United States in 2003, and she's lived in Koreatown for 18 years. Luis inmigró a los Estados Unidos en 2003 y ha vivido en Koreatown por 18 años. She's from Veracruz, Mexico, where she was a teacher. Her favorite subject is sociology. Ella es del estado de Veracruz, en México, y ella era una maestra. Su tema favorita es sociología. I glued bags and machines on my zine because when Luz worked in the garment district, she programmed a machine that created bags with designs. Pegué fotos de bolsas y máquinas en mi zine porque cuando Luz trabajaba en la industria, ella programaba una máquina que hace diseños por las bolsas. The shirt I glued on the zine represents the different designs that Luz used. La camisa que está en el zine representa los diferentes diseños que usó Luz. To continue, I wrote family on my zine in Spanish because family is extremely important to Luz. She's a mother of 3 daughters and a grandmother to 3 grandchildren. También la familia es muy importante para Luz. Ella es una madre de 3 hijas y abuela de 3. To conclude, I just wanted to thank KSP's participants and our funders for allowing myself and my peers to learn about the garment district. It's been an amazing experience where I've learned so many different things about Koreatown and the many multi-ethnic, multilingual communities that exist within the greater Los Angeles. Para terminar, yo quiero agradecer a todos los participantes y los partidarios de este programa. Aprendí muchas cosas nuevas sobre la industria y las experiencias de los inmigrantes en los Estados Unidos. Muchas gracias.
United States in 1975, where he is a senior. Chung-Gu Park is a senior currently living in the Koreatown district. He first immigrated to the United States in 1975, where he first came to Texas. But after finding it very difficult to make a living, he decided to move back to Korea. Los Angeles was the only location where they offered a flight back to Korea, but there he coincidentally met his friend who offered to help him live in Koreatown. And so Chung-Gu Park decided to stay in Koreatown and try to make a living. Through the help of his friend, Mr. Park was able to find an apartment and a job. I learned many things from Mr. Park. I first realized the difficulties immigrants had to endure. Mr. Park had to work many occupations to support his family, and even though sometimes he didn't enjoy the work that he had to do, he persevered because he had to make a living. From him, I also learned the joy, or maybe the perks, of working in the garment district. Even though working long hours in a factory was tiring for Mr. Park, he was able to make many new friends while working. Even though he lacked skills in English, he still made friends with many of the people who he worked with. This sign page is dedicated to Mr. Park. I added a picture of a factory and Koreatown in a plane with the Korean flag. Mr. Park mentioned how even though he lived in the United States for so long, he was still a true Korean in the inside. And to display this, I added the Korean flag, and I added a plane to symbolize immigration. And the factory is supposed to be his days when he worked in the garment district. And lastly, the Koreatown is his involvement in the Koreatown community. He has done a lot for the senior Koreatown community, and I wanted to also display this. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kaylee Beck, who is also co-hosting today's event. She will be studying comparative literature at UCLA next fall.
So my zine I made my zine for Stella, my elder, and she moved to America in 1976, and her immigration journey was actually quite pleasant because she had already learned English as an art teacher in Korea, and so I included paint swatches and stuff and flowers to show that it was a relatively easy time that she had immigrating. But then as she got older and as her children started moving away to university and things, she began to become more realistic about the American dream, and she kind of lost faith in the way America ran and stuff, because she had been working her whole life, but people that had never worked in a day were getting more support from the government than her, and she couldn't even go back to Korea because all of the people in Korea were living in their own lives, and she feels like she wouldn't be able to fit in if she went back to Korea, so she just kind of in a state of limbo, apart from her children, apart from everybody. And so so that's what my zine is. Next we have, sorry, never mind.
Thank you, Kaylee, for sharing. Next up, we have Cheyenne, and she will be introducing her zine page.
Cheyenne made her video of the zine page that we just saw, so I'm glad you get to see her page on the right because she was describing it in the video. And so as she said, there's the Korean flag and the Koreatown sign, and also the factory where Mr. Chung Koo-kang worked, representing that. Next, we have Cheyenne's classmate from New Covenant Academy, Jaden. And Jaden is a rising senior, and she also started the journalism club at New Covenant Academy with Cheyenne. Her interviewee is Kimmy Kim. And Cheyenne, can you describe your page, please?
So this zine is dedicated to Kimmy and Young Kim. She is 53 years old, and she immigrated to the US when she was 12 with her parents. And in the middle of the zine, there's a picture of just downtown LA, which is where she works in the garment district. She does screen printing, and that's why I've included the image of screen printing and the t-shirt.
And so during the pandemic, she switched over to making masks and PPE instead of continuing her job, which was screen printing. And I put a mask there to represent that. And I thought it was interesting how COVID had affected her life and her career. And I've also included several quotes from our interviews in the zine. And the first is, my parents were completely against the fine arts, but I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So during our conversations, me and Kimmy talked a lot about like following your dreams and like future career paths and things like that. And Kimmy said her parents were really against what she wanted to do, which was like graphic design. But she like pulled through and did what she wanted anyways. And she says she has no regrets. And then she also recommended that I do the same and follow my dreams. And I wanted to represent her love for fine arts. So in the background, I just put together a bunch of different colorful art pieces. And the second quote that I decided to include was, I tend to stay away from Korean people. This was her answer to a question that I asked when I asked if she had any racial conflicts at work or what it was like working with people from all different backgrounds. And she said she was more comfortable with people of different cultures than Korean people, mostly because she's had bad experiences while working in the industry. I just thought that was really interesting and showed like kind of her slightly different connection to her culture. So I included it. The last quote is, enjoy your life as much as you can and give it your best like there's no tomorrow. This is what she said to me when I asked her for a life lesson. And I thought that's something that everyone should know. So yeah, that's my zine for Kimmy.
Next up, Kimberly, who is my co-host, will be introducing her zines, and she's interviewed 2 different people, so yeah.
As I have previously mentioned in today's event, Petra Hernandez is from Pico Union and a member of the Garment Workers Center. She left her job in the garment industry in March 2020, just as the pandemic was beginning to become the headline all around the world. While speaking with Hernandez, I was able to learn about her experience as a worker and the injustices that happened behind the scenes of advertisements such as lowest prices on the latest mail you may arrive to once getting home. Hence, the lowest prices sign on the digital collage. There were many other memorable points in our interview where she further shared about her injustices and how the people where she would work at would threaten her with the arrival of ICE to the workplace. It was very emotional to be speaking with the worker Petra, who shared her story and was brave in doing so, and I thank her for her courage and trust. So Petra Hernandez es trabajadora de el área de Pico Union. También es miembro del Garment Workers Center, a donde apoyan a trabajadores en la industria de prenda. Ella dejó su trabajo en la industria el marzo 2020, cuando la pandemia se estaba volviendo viral a través del mundo. Cuando conversé con Hernández, platicó sobre su experiencia como trabajadora, al igual que las injusticias que pasan detrás de cámara, detrás de la realidad que muchos de nosotros pensamos que es. Y agradezco su valentía en compartir su historia. Muchas gracias, Petra. También entrevisté a Ofelia Zabaleta, que trabajó en la industria de prenda, pero dejó el trabajo para trabajar en el restaurante de comida rápida de McDonald's hace unos años. Cuando hablé con ella sobre su experiencia en la industria de prenda, ella platicó sobre la convivencia que había entre trabajadores, al igual que sus patrones, y qué bien la trataban. I also interviewed Ofelia Zabaleta, who is from Boyle Heights. She used to work in the garment industry as a trimmer, and although she no longer works in this industry and has transitioned as a worker of the fast food restaurant McDonald's as a cleaner, she talked about her work and how much she enjoyed working in the garment industry. She talked about the gatherings they had as workers and how well the people she worked for treated her. This past year during COVID-19, she also expressed her gratitude for the health of her family and for being able to have her close relatives safe. Muchas gracias, señora Ofelia, por su bondad y confianza.
Our next presenter is going to be Rebecca Louie. Next slide, please. Becca is a rising junior at the Marlborough School, and she will talk about her interviewee, Sam.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Louie, and my elder was Samuel Koo, the president and creative director of the denim company AG Jeans. Founded in 2001 by a partnership between designer Adriano Goldschmied and Samuel's father, AG has since grown into a huge corporation sold both in its own direct retail stores and in department stores such as Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's. In our interview, we discussed AG Jeans from start to finish, from Samuel's father's story as a Korean immigrant and business entrepreneur to how the company has evolved throughout the last 2 decades. In my zine, I wanted to fully highlight Samuel's story and connection to the Los Angeles garment industry. To do this, I included a collage of denim to represent AG Jeans and elements in both English and Korean to symbolize the duality of his culture and his family's culture. Samuel's story was truly amazing, and learning about how his family has built and grown their business was so inspiring. Hearing an experience that was very similar to my mother's immigrant story not only taught me more, but also made me feel more connected to my family history. However, it also brought to my attention the underrepresented nature of these stories, which is heartbreaking to me because I believe that this is what the great American story of hard work and success can be. I hope to continue to utilize my voice in order to elevate and share narratives like Samuel's in the future, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do so through the Koreatown Storytelling Program.
Next up, we have Joe, who will be attending Dartmouth in the fall, and he's going to be presenting the zine that he made for Italy.
Joe, your voice is you sound like a chipmunk. I think you have a voice filter on. Can you check your audio again?
Hello? Hello?
Better.
Is it better? Sorry. So do I just start again?
Yeah, introduce yourself and your subject.
All right. So my name is Joe, and I interviewed Nikki Lee, who was born in South Korea in 1968, and she immigrated to Miami in 1985. She was 18 years old, and it wasn't her choice to move here. So, like, she was pretty upset about it. But she ended up marrying and moving to California in 2002. And she told me that, like, she and her sister, I think, were they really liked fashion. So, and their parents already had some businesses. So they wanted to start some fashion businesses themselves. And I thought that it was really cool when she told me that there was no way to like go on the internet or anything, because there was no internet back then, so she had to literally reach out to everyone she saw and just talk to them and get the connections that she needed to start a business, right? So yeah, she's been having a job in the fashion garment fashion district as a store manager. And one thing that I really found intriguing about her role as a store manager is that the different aspects of the store management are separated and given to different people based on their skill sets. So the reason for why Nikki's job fit the best for her is that she really liked talking to new people, and she really liked fashion, right? Which is perfect for her job because she needed to know recent fashion trends, and she needed to talk to customers a lot. And another example that she gave me, which I'm going to use to prove that point again, her boss is Chinese. So she told me because she's Chinese, she knows like what's happening in China, right? And in China, like there were all of their manufacturers, right? So it really worked out, but she was telling me how stressful that job was, like talking to the manufacturers, because if you made even one mistake, like it could cause money loss because, lack of sales and stuff like that. Anyway, am I talking too much? I'm sorry. So she's actually planning to move to Florida right after Kaylee dorms at UCLA, partly because her family members, some of her family members are in Florida, and they were telling her, oh, come here. But then she couldn't really go because she had Kaylee. And the other reason for why she's planning to move is that she doesn't really like LA because there's so much trash everywhere. Hence the I kind of don't like LA and the trash bins on the zine. So, oh yeah. And where it says no time, I put that there because there's another interesting thing that she told me. Apparently, she's so busy every day that there's absolutely no time for her to say hi to her neighbors. Like it's so cool. It's so weird to me because like they're all bunched up together like that. Like, so it's like weird for me to not imagine that they would say hi to each other, or like just talk for a little while. apparently they don't even know their names, know each other's names, which is crazy to me. But I'm going to end on the life lessons. The first life lesson that she gave me was don't be lazy, because apparently she was a boss before, and because she was lazy, she couldn't hold up that position. And yeah, she had to work under a boss for the first time, and that's when she realized, oh, I can't be lazy when I'm doing this stuff. And then the second one is basically don't be racist. Because there are different kinds of people, but they're all the same. And I think this makes the most sense. Like the fact that she learned this lesson makes the most sense, because she had to talk to all of those customers. And those customers came from all over the place. And they were just people, So that's Nikki. Great person to talk to. Sorry if I talked for a long time, but yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your zines and for honoring your elders through your interviews. Moving forward, in order to continue connecting and celebrating the diverse communities that can be found in Los Angeles, this next cohort will focus on elder residencies, adult day healthcares, and nursing homes within Koreatown.
So I'm leaving this program after 2 cohorts to go to college, but I really loved my experience in KSP and highly encourage high school students to join. So if you're a high school student living in or going to school in Koreatown, we are currently accepting applications for our 3rd cohort of the Koreatown Storytelling Program. And you can apply at our website, genbygen.com, by clicking Find Out More on the front page. And the application deadline is June 30th. We hope you'll join us.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Kaylee and Kimberly, for co-hosting this event. And I'm glad that everybody got to learn a little bit about KSP, the program, and about oral history and the work that we're doing with the elders in the community. So as Kaylee and Kimberly said, next semester, we're focusing on a different theme. So we'll be looking at elder residences, nursing homes, people who are living in the community in those areas. We're really interested to find out what their experiences were like during the quarantine. Many of those residents weren't able to see their loved ones for an extended period of time, and just wanting to hear their perspective. Was there anything in history that they had experienced that was similar to this? So we'll be training high school students on interview techniques and oral history. So please do come and apply. Next, we have questions. I don't know where I can see if anybody has questions for our participants. All of our students are online and they can answer any of your questions. So we have about 5 minutes for a Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not sure where I can see them, but I think they come onto our comments page. Here we got one. It says, will you be publishing the zine pages as one zine? How can one get a copy? And so we are going to be publishing the zine. So we're going to take the zine and scan them together and then printing them. But they are going to Ziba. And so Ziba is the zine librarian at the Baldwin Hills location. And so, as she said at the beginning, there's over 1,000 zines at the LAPL, which we didn't all know until we had her come teach us a workshop. And so the zine will be available for you to check out. Ziba, maybe you can speak a little bit about that?
Check out lapl.org/zines to find out more. They're cataloged, over 1,000 of them. You can get it with your library card at any of the branch next to you. You can just have it sent there on a hold. And we're so happy to have your zine as part of our zine collection here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're so excited. It's going to be in circulation, the zine that we just created. We have another question. It said, love the zines and hearing the different oral histories. I feel like the garment fashion district is super important, but not often publicized part of Koreatown. I was wondering, do any of you feel like you were exposed to a new side of your community from this experience? If so, then what do you think you learned? Yeah, I'd love for some of the students, interestingly, I would say maybe 3 or 4 of you have family members in the garment industry. So, you know, Kaylee's mom was a pattern maker and a manager, you know, so there are different parents who were a part of this, or it was in their family, so it wasn't so new to them. When we went on the walking tour, some of the students were like, I grew up here. I don't need to see it. I spend all my time here. And then some of my students had never been there before. So yeah, let's hear from some of the students, some of the things that you've learned.
I can speak to that. I think as a teen girl, fashion is something that is so, you know, it's everywhere. It's on billboards, it's in magazines. It's something that is very constant in our lives. But I do think that the stories behind the industry, maybe in the garment district, or of individuals who have created these companies or who work in the factories, they're really not shared. And so I think that through this program, I was really able to learn more about something that is so, it's just something that's in my everyday life, but I never really knew the backstory of. And I think that's really important.
Any other students?
If I can share a short anecdote, if that's okay. I think I definitely second what Becca said, because if I'm just in my everyday life and I talk to like a coworker, for example, while working in Koreatown, if we talk about the occupations of their parents or grandparents, they'll often reveal that they were, you know, sewers, or they were brief managers, or they worked in the factories. So even if it was only for 5 years when they first immigrated, you'll notice that like a lot of people have connections. For example, my next door neighbor is a sewer, and she sewed masks during the pandemic. So I loved learning about that.
I think I was really surprised, you know, as we went along, we would talk to somebody and say, oh, so-and-so's, you know, brother is in the garment industry. It just, as we kept going, it kept, you know, we kept finding people who were in some way connected. Even Ziba, you know, Ziba was introduced to us as going to lead our zine workshop. And then when I told her about our program, she said her grandmother was a seamstress in Iran. And so the zine page that she created for us was a tribute to her grandmother. And so, you know, it really is, especially in Koreatown, I knew that there were a lot of people connected to the industry, but more and more people kind of came out of the woodwork. However, I think that one of the things I really learned was how secretive the community is and how difficult it was for people to talk about their stories. And so it's, for some of the reasons are just like business reasons, like it's competitive, a highly competitive cash industry. You know, if you're in clothing and there's a certain trend or a certain pattern and somebody copies it, then, you know, your shirt isn't worth as much as the other person's shirt. And so there were a lot of things that we came across that were challenging for us. So the oral histories that we did did get, I feel like, are really important because people don't like to share those parts of their stories. Anybody else like to add as I go? Oh, I have a question here from Yesenia. How did you all, if any, deal with language barriers? How was your experience translating the elders' experience into one zine? So you can kind of talk about your elders, if everyone can go around and talk about their elder and the language issues or what language you conducted. Jaden, you can start because you had an interesting experience.
Not only did we make like zines, but we also had to transcribe, edit, and then have like our interview transcripts prepared. So yesterday I was going through and listening to the interview so I could edit it one more time. But it was really difficult because the whole interview was in Konglish, so I had to keep switching languages when I was typing. And when I started interviewing Kimmy, I was told that she was comfortable with Korean. So I'm not that good at Korean, but the two of us were like both struggling to talk to each other. And then while she was talking, all of a sudden she was like, "This is too hard." And then we were like, and I was like, "Are you more comfortable with English?" And she was like, "Yeah." So then we switched to English. So the interview starts off in Korean and then half of it is English. I just thought that was like kind of interesting. It's a little hard to like transcribe, but yeah, that it wasn't exactly a language barrier, but it was kind of something funny.
I can also speak about my experiences with interviewing in a different language. So I interviewed Luz Hernandez and she spoke Spanish. And so I took Spanish in high school, so I had like the basics down, but it was still difficult to kind of speak with her because I'm not completely fluent. And so listening and writing and speaking are all very different skills to have. And so I asked her to just speak slowly to me and to be patient if I like messed up with my Spanish. And she was overall super kind and just very understanding. And so it was a really good experience to just kind of practice my Spanish and also just to have her be comfortable when she's sharing her story because English is not her native language. And so when we were transcribing the interviews, there was a lot of back and forth with Google Translate for me, I'd say, and I had to listen to the interview back, and sometimes I couldn't understand what I was saying, I couldn't understand what she was saying, so it was a lot of back and forth, but I think overall it was just a super fun experience to kind of just speak a different language with someone else, because English is the norm in America, but we all know that our country is made up of so many different cultures and languages, and just being able to have a new outlook into that was just a super interesting experience for me.
Becca?
My interview was in English, so it was pretty straightforward with the whole interviewing and transcribing process. But I did learn more about Samuel's Korean heritage and culture through the interview, even though we did not speak in Korean.
Joe?
So we mainly talked in English. I mean, I'm most comfortable with English, but like she obviously felt more comfortable speaking Korean, but she still was able to speak English really well. And but then like whenever she didn't really know how to say something, she had to say it in Korean. Thankfully, like even though I'm terrible at Korean, I know like some words, right? Like maybe some vocabulary from Korean dramas. But yeah, I guess through that, I was able to get a clearer picture of what she was trying to say. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There weren't that many complications, except for like when listening to like the interview again to transcribe it. So yeah.
Yeah, so we did try to pair people according to their language ability. Most of our students are bilingual, but Rebecca is Chinese American, and so I knew she couldn't speak Korean like most of our students are Spanish, and so that's why we partnered her with Sam, who was second generation Korean American. And then Kimberly, of course, is fluent in Spanish, and so she was able to do her interviews completely in Spanish, and then Abigail trilingual. So we wanted to get more Latinx voices. So I wanted Abigail to interview Luz. And we have another question here. Do you think you learned anything new about your own family or relatives from hearing the stories of your elders? Who's going to take that question?
Well, I can speak to that. I wasn't necessarily assigned to like my mom because Abigail was interviewing her, but I did just want to know more about her like experience as a worker in the garment industry. And I realized that I didn't know a lot of things, like even just her schedule, like she still remembers that. And to me, that's pretty cool. A lot of traditions as well. So I like discovered a lot about my own family, and I think that's pretty cool. Just like I also found a lot of similarities between like my mom's experience and my elders' experience with the language barrier as a migrant in the US. So that was something else.
Does anybody have anything to add? I'll go to the next question, which is from Sung Park Kim. I'm curious if you will be preserving the oral history recordings. So we do have audio. That's one of the techniques that we learned. We recorded on Otter. We uploaded them, and then KSP had an audio intern, Mina Young. She is a student at the USC Thornton School of Music. She is in the recording major. So she works kind of on the production end. So she edited all of the audio together, and they are being uploaded to StoryCorps Connect. StoryCorps is a national oral history program, and StoryCorps Connect is their community platform. And so KSP has a community platform that we will be uploading the audio, and then StoryCorps then archives them at the Library of Congress in the American Folklife Center. So those are going to be kept there. And we are also looking into partnering next semester with Korean American Story in New York. And so we will be doing audio and video interviews, and they archive their stories at the Korean American Digital Archive at USC. But we will also be uploading them onto our website. So those are two places that we've looked at so far, but if anybody in the audience has any links, we're always trying to document our community's voices. That's definitely been a goal of mine. We've talked a lot, as the students know, about history and who makes history. So I'd like to thank Susan Fukushima, who launched this program. She's a librarian at the Felipe de Neve branch of the Los Angeles Public Library. She reached out to me last year and for the Book to Action grant. So we were able to partner 3 times with the Los Angeles Public Library, including this culmination. I'd like to hand it off to Ziba. Thank you so much, Ziba.
Thank you, Catherine, and everyone. I loved hearing about your zine pages. I love these bilingual zines, especially. So excited to see them at the library in our zine collection. Very creative. And I just love how there's all types of images that are added to each page to really tell the elders' stories and bring it to life. Thank you, participants, presenters, and viewers again. And if you could take a moment to fill out our 2 surveys, these projects were grant funded, so we would really appreciate it. The links are in the chat. Everyone have a great TEENtastic Tuesday. Thank you. See you next time.